Thanks for taking time to listen to this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Take a minute to go to therealresq.com to check out these and other great deals from our sponsors here at the Real ResQ. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Sr3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And RescueSwimmerShop.com, official high-quality apparel featuring the silhouette. Breeze Eastern. They dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. Sr3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, long line, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com. Mention this podcast, the Real ResQ podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. 15 years ago, photographer and Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 526, Chris Razak, created an iconic photograph. This photograph depicted the silhouette of a helicopter rescue swimmer reaching down for an outstretched hand in need against the American flag backdrop. The image went viral and became a symbol worldwide for the rescue community and the people they help. Its wild popularity inspired Chris to launch RescueSwimmerShop.com, a web store offering official high-quality apparel featuring his evocative image, the silhouette. T-shirts, hats, patches, and stickers featuring the silhouette are available at RescueSwimmerShop.com, including the flagship design, So Others May Live. Follow Chris and his story on Instagram with the handle @RescueSwimmerShop. And if you are a rescue swimmer, support rescue swimmers, or just tell people you are one at the bar, this gear is definitely for you. When you get to the website, RescueSwimmerShop.com, enter the promo code, all lowercase, one word, RESCUE, RESCUE, for 10% off your order. I had an absolute pleasure talking to our next guest. He's our first guest from the California Highway Patrol, and he's working up in the Lake Tahoe area. But their area of responsibility is ridiculous, and he actually gets into it in this episode. What they do with their little helicopter is amazing. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I do. Please welcome California Highway Patrol Officer, Mr. Kevin Vinatieri. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ podcast. Today I've got another treat with me. He is a pilot from California Highway Patrol, Mr. Kevin Vinatieri. What's up, Mr. Vinatieri? How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm doing great.
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate this because I'll tell you what, I've seen some YouTube videos of you guys and what you guys do in California as far as a highway patrol with an A-Star, and like Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Plus, I had, let's see, Claire Nelson. We had Riverside Sheriff's Department. Those guys, because you guys all work together with all the agencies. It's pretty impressive to watch. So, but
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk to you, as somebody that's in California Highway Patrol, to kind of hear some of your stories right from you guys. This is awesome.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, let's talk.
All right. But before I go too far, I do have to ask the question, because I'm a diehard New England fan. Any relation to Adam Vinatieri?
Yeah, we are first cousins. So
what?
Yeah.
Yes.
You
just tell him I said thank you. Thank you, Super Bowl. Booyah.
Yeah, exactly. People always go, "Hey, why don't you kick a football?" I go, I fly helicopters, and no, my parents didn't encourage me to kick a football, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I love it. Well, all right. So from me to you to him, just tell him I said thank you and hello.
Will do.
Yes. All right. Anyway, for everybody else that doesn't know you out there, please introduce yourself, a little bit of background about you and how you became a CHP officer.
Yeah, I cut my teeth in the Army National Guard in California. That's kind of how. Yeah, I started back in high school. I enlisted. I was a helicopter mechanic, and then a crew chief, and then I became an observer, and then finally went to flight school. And did that from 87 to 99. And in the process, towards the end of that stint with the military, I started showing interest in law enforcement and gravitated towards the highway patrol, and then got hired with them in 1995 and did a couple of years on the road and got recruited into air ops. And here I've been for the last 23 years. Doing what we do best, we say all roads, all codes.
Oh, dang, that's awesome. I like that. Now, where can I ask where specifically you are located, or is that like?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. We're in so the High Patrol has 8 divisions in the state. So they broke it up into 8 divisions. I'm in Valley Division, which is just encompasses 13 counties. But what people would really know is like the Sacramento area, the Lake Tahoe area, and then north and south quite a bit. So we're the primary search and rescue helicopter, especially up in Tahoe and in all those 13 counties. So there are other agencies that have helicopters. We work very well with them. Most are in the search and rescue business are more or less part-time. They're not fully staffed 7 days a week, but we are.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
So being up in Tahoe, that's rough.
Yeah. There's been a few times we've been flying. You're like, yeah, we're getting paid to do this. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful area. But starting back from my Army days, I've been flying in this part of California since 88, basically. So I know it really, really, really well. And a little bit more like the military side, I flew OH-58s, Hueys, UH-60 Blackhawks, and then the UH-72 Lakotas. And then came over to the highway patrol and flew the BO-105 and then the AS-350 A-Star. And all of those aircraft, they all have amazing, qualities, but pound for pound, my absolute favorite helicopter that I've ever flown has been the A-Star. It's just, everybody goes, oh, I'd like to have a twin. Yeah, who wouldn't? But for a single engine helicopter, the horsepower to weight ratio to lift, it's just such a versatile, amazing aircraft. I absolutely love it.
I like the A-Star. I really do. It's like I've flown on it a couple times. We have hoisted in it a couple times. I always laugh when I go out for a training class with an A-Star, because as an instructor, you're looking over the shoulder of the guy that's hoisted. And then as he's bringing the gear out, you're stepping out of the aircraft on the skid on the other side, just to keep the weight and balance right. Like, okay, yeah. Bring the dude in. Let's land.
Yeah.
So do you, like, you guys do a lot of law enforcement and search and rescue. So since I love my search and rescue stuff, do you remember your first search and rescue case?
Yeah, it was my very first was in the military. So on the highway patrol.
Oh, wait, I'm good. We can start with the military. I'm all about, let's start with very number one. I'm all about it.
The very first one was, we're going back a long way, so I don't know if this is the absolute first one, because this would be in the early 90s. But there was one where we were up in the Tahoe area, and there was a lost hiker kind of near a ski resort in a valley area. And so went up there, inserted a bunch of SARA ground personnel, did a bunch of flying around, located her, and there near where we're working was a resort. And so we ended up hoisting her out, landing at the resort, which just happened to also be having this big wedding. And the wedding party was so blown away, not literally, by the Black Hawk rotor wash, but they were so excited to see a helicopter land at their venue that we ended up posing with the wedding party.
What?
As part of the rest at the end of the rescue. Let the girl wasn't hurt or anything, so we turned her over to ground personnel and then posed with the wedding party. It was pretty surreal.
That's pretty awesome. Just walk over. You may now kiss the bride.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Oh, I like that. That's pretty awesome. Nice. All right. So what about when you came into the highway patrol?
They're literally in my span of 23 years. And for many years, we have the two probably busiest offices. And I started down in the Fresno area. And so that part of California is extremely rugged versus, and like when people get injured or lost in that part of California. So we're talking south of Yosemite and the Sierra Nevadas. To me, when I first flew down there, having flown in Northern California for so long, you get down there to the east and the southeast, it looks to, I've never flown in Switzerland, but the mountain ranges are jagged. They're very, very picturesque. Where you get Northern California, you got a lot of rolling foothills. Then you got some Sierra Mountains around the Lake Tahoe area, but nothing like Central and South, Mammoth, that area. So you give me your questions, I was racking my brain. I go, there's been so many over the years that they all tend to blend together, but they're all unique. I can't say you don't ever want to say there's like a cookie cutter rescue, because every single one has variables to it. But one that definitely sticks out, and this one was probably 8 years ago in this division. It was Matterhorn Peak. It's around 12,000 feet. I wish I could send you the picture. The lenticular clouds over the Sierras, they were dark, very crazy looking lenticulars. The winds were howling out of the southwest. And one thing we're training newer pilots or anybody I come in contact, I go, the way that the topography is in California, especially in this area, we have strong winds out of the southwest. In all of my career, those are the winds that I've had more close calls with, bad winds and massive downdrafts. And so we get up there and we're trying to find a guy he's got cell reception and he's pretty messed up, like pretty major injuries. And so we're in our little A-Star and we're coming down this ridge, and the turbulence was definitely severe. And I finally just told my partner, okay, hoist things off the table. We're not, and I don't even know if we're going to be able to hover. So we were kind of just coming around this mountain range and just doing gun runs. And I told my partner, I go, hey, I'm going to control the aircraft. Your job is to look for this guy on this side of this ridge. And we made probably 12 to 24 passes. And each time I'm just trying to control the aircraft and the severe turbulence. And he's looking, and we had a general location. We never found him. And so we went back to our LZ, and the same time the military came in from Nevada in a Black Hawk. And it always makes you feel better when you're doing everything you can as a little bird. and a Blackhawk shows up and it's so severe that they can't hoist either. And so, but they had night vision goggles, and they were, because we were doing our search, it was getting close to sunset. So they found them pretty quick with a light, and they couldn't do any hoisting. So I know they got ground personnel close by. And then the next day, my sister unit that flew Chinooks went up there and they did the hoist. And those pilots, even the wind was pretty strong the next day, go, "You're insane." I mean, they're just like, "We're in a Chinook and we're puckered pretty tight doing what we're doing." I go, "That can't go." They couldn't even imagine doing it in a little helicopter. And I said, "That's what we do."
Mic drop.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Dang. So I gotta back up a second. So Chinook, you have a sister company that has the sister company to the
military.
The military.
Yeah.
They roll up in there.
So let me back up. Yeah.
Dang. All right.
Yeah. So so when I said I was in from 87 to 99 in the Guard, and then I got out, and 13 years later, so 2012 basically, I re-enlisted and back into the Guard, deployed to Afghanistan, and then finished up a 20-year career. So I had a 13-year break in service.
Wow.
And people always go, "Why did you get back in?" I go, "My life was too perfect. So I, decided to screw it all up and deploy to Afghanistan." So no, it was a really, really good last 8 years to finish up a good 20-year career.
Were you flying in Afghanistan as well?
Yeah. So I was back in the UH-60s as a medevac pilot in Western Afghanistan.
Medevac pilot.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of medevac pilots and what you guys did over there too. Just gonna throw that out there. Just plant that little seed for a minute. So so back to this last story. So a Chinook coming in. So those that don't know, a Chinook is that big double prop helicopter, double rotor head helicopter that's coming in. They fly through some stuff, and to have them butt puckered and knowing you're coming in with an A-star.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'll do this all day. Let's go. What else you got?
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, over the years, the last couple of years have been a little bit slower, I think, due to COVID. But on average, for our unit, just here in Valley Division on the Highway Patrol, we would get in the 50s rescues between June, July, and August. I mean, we crank out a lot because it's such a world destination, right? Lake Tahoe, that the volume of people up there, and you can literally drive to close to everything except for the small, they're not that small, but the wilderness areas, the only areas that don't have like backcountry roads or fire roads or something like that. So, and you can get to a lot of that remote area pretty quick from the Tahoe Basin. So a lot of people that go up there vacationing don't turn on a radio. And the thing is, in the summertime, you see blue skies, but the way the weather pattern is, the Sierras get hammered with huge thunder cells. So you can wake up to blue skies in the morning and it rains and hails over Tahoe, but the whole, west of Tahoe is completely, blue skies. Wow. So that typically that or broken ankles are by far number one, by far, because there's so many, there's thousands of people, hundreds of thousands that go annually up in the summertime to go. All the ski resorts are open in the summertime for hiking and mountain biking. There's so many trails. So we're very, very, very busy every summer for rescues, and they vary from, like I said, there's no one type of rescue, but generally it's always going to be almost a broken ankle.
Yeah. So what are you guys using to retrieve those, especially with a hoist, if you're hoisting out?
So for years, we relied heavily on the search and rescue community to assist with the process, because we fly a crew of two, so pilot and then paramedic flight officer. So they're the hoist operator. The last several years, one of our members in our unit, Matt Calcutt, has been instrumental in promoting and really organizing I just had one of your senior moments, the HRT program, the helicopter rescue technician program, with high standards. I mean, all the members have to be paramedics. All the members have to have high angle rope. All the paramedics or all the rescuers are avalanche. They're self-contained. So they know that we're going to go in really bad weather, and we may not come back for them if the weather envelope closes. So they're self-contained. They can hike. They can get themselves out of extreme backcountry areas. So
wow, that's cool.
We've been slowly, so we've been using less and less of just the normal SAR members and going exclusively with HRT members, because we train with them. They're highly qualified, and they have requirements that they have to meet. So there's that whole all right, who is this person we're gonna, that's packaging the patient? We absolutely know they're qualified. So it was definitely a game changer.
I can't agree with you more. And for people that don't understand that, to have a trusted guy that you're deploying out of the aircraft, and that you have down on ground, that not only knows the ground side of things, but the aviation side of things. That is ridiculous. The knowledge to have that, because I've been there. I've been on scene with both, and you're trying to brief guys on the ground. You're like, okay, this is what you guys are going to do. And you're like, please don't mess this up, and then you're looking at guys in the air, and as a guy in the air, and you're looking at guys on the ground, you're like, do they actually know what they're doing? Holy cow, we're about to hoist this guy 50 feet off the ground. If he's packaged strong, this could end very poorly. So good for you guys.
It's like everything, it's the infancy of everything. 20, 30 years ago, you did what you had to do. And like I said, we relied heavily on SAR members, and there was nothing wrong with them, but there's a turnover. They're all volunteers.
Yep.
They're not all capable of doing the job. So some have, health issues, or they're elderly. They're just people that like to hike in the mountains and they want to help. So God bless them for wanting to help, but they're probably not the best person that should be packaging a patient on the ground. So going away, they're a great asset for what they do, but when it comes to, as we have grown, and as everyone knows, the industry's trying to be as safe as you can and mitigate risk. So having HRT members, like I said, has been a absolute game changer. When you're talking with an A-star, so going back to your question, we wear basically three hats. Our primary job is obviously to support the ground officers first and foremost. Secondly is we wear a second hat of rescues, a rescue technician. So we go up and do the rescues. And then third, we are a medical transport helicopter. We are ALS. So we have a lot of gear on that helicopter, and it can get busy. And so we're always really limited on weight, because in the aviation world, they build these amazing helicopters, and then what happens, everybody wants to throw a bunch of stuff on it, and slowly you lose all that weight to power ratio, and now you're working with a minimal power margin. So, the A-Star 143 gallons, we normally fly with 90 to 95. That's the max we can have due to all the gear that we have, because we have rescue gear, we have medical gear. So it adds up.
Dang. Yeah. Weight adds up quick in a helicopter, and people don't quite understand that. It's not like loading up your car and I'm a little overweight. No. We can't take off. Or if you take off, you can't put that sucker in a hover, because we're too heavy.
Yeah.
And then you got to be dumping fuel, and I don't like that.
Right. Yeah. So we and since we cover 13 counties, and that changes a lot. So we go from sea level up to 12,000 feet. So and that's just pressure altitude. When you start talking density altitude, I've been doing hoisting at 13,000 feet, DA, 14,000 feet, DA. We strip the aircraft that's got minimal fuel to do the mission. But yeah, I mean, it's always, you're always that close to the power margin.
Well, that sounds like a story. Do tell.
The cup, like I was telling you, the Southwest winds, and it's kind of like lessons learned type of thing. There have been a couple of times you check all the boxes, you mitigate all the risks, but at the end of the day, you can't mitigate Mother Nature when she decides to slap you pretty hard. And I've gotten very, very lucky in 2 close encounters with the ground running out, or just a massive downdraft. So the things that saved me was having an exit plan, a good deal of luck, and basically sticking with the plan. And so just coming into land, literally we got a major headwind, power's like super good, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone, and we're being drove to the ground. And one time I just took my out, flew away, and go, well, we're done. We're not doing that mission. Another time, this one's probably 15 years ago, same thing.
Yeah, feel free to throw in a couple details of the whole mission, by the way. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Basically, they're Lake Tahoe. They're on if you've been in the search and rescue industry, you always know they're never in the best place to do anything. They're always in the bowl. They're on the downwind side. They're just in the worst places. It's like it's a treat when you have a rescue where they're in an open field or in an open area, or they have a nice headwind. It's never that. So they were both in the wrong areas on the back side of the mountains, all the nasty winds. It's just a big soup bowl of bad air, and you're trying to mitigate, and you're getting enough read. You go, okay, I feel confident. We stripped all the gear. Our power margin's good. You're not seeing anything major. And you do your power checks, you're coming in, and then out of nowhere, the wind disappears. And both times they were backcountry, broken ankles. So it's like I said, it seems to always be broken ankles. Like yeah, it's just people twist an ankle, break an ankle. And both times literally headed to the ground. Like I said, the one time it happened high enough where I was able to fly out of it. The second time, I didn't even have enough time to tell my partner we're going to crash. And the only thing in the back of my mind is, okay, I'm max power. And when we get into ground effect, that might be just enough to stop us from impacting the ground. And then that's exactly what occurred.
Holy
so
cow.
Like I said, I was earlier in the career, and before I really learned that Southwest winds were extremely dangerous. I mean, winds are bad anyways, and It just seems like when we have the same velocity out of the northeast, it doesn't tend to churn it up as bad as it does when they're out of the southwest. They're just the way the mountain ranges are. It's just, I hate south winds, and I'm talking 30-40 mile an hour winds and stuff like that. So yeah.
And you know what, I'll help out for some people that don't fly and or understand that, but basically your downdraft is something that may come up over the ridge lines of the mountain, and then all of a sudden it circles over the top and comes back down on the backside. So if you come if you're a helicopter coming in, you're pulling power, let's say outside of that downdraft, and you're like, okay, I've got enough power. Well, as soon as you get in close to do the hoist, now the downdraft hits the top of the helicopter, and that's where you get that push down, and all of a sudden you're pulling max power. Is that pretty accurate?
Absolutely.
It's almost like I knew what I was doing.
Almost. No, it's like everything. I would tell newer pilots, be conservative. More so, it's like you get a new car, you just started driving, you're really conservative. You don't know the dimensions of the car. You're learning your craft. And then as you get more driving experience, and just like flying, you're like, okay, you have some, close calls with whatever. I mean, that's just part of learning. And then as you go along, you take all those experiences and you listen to other people and you apply that to what you're doing. And like I said, you can factor everything else out. But at the end of the day, there's just those weird random anomalies, and high altitude mountain flying is one of them with strong winds. It's just, as I get to the end of my career, I definitely have made more, all right, go, no goes. Like, these are my new parameters, and I'm just not going to, bend, so to speak, because I've seen it so many times. I've just gone, no, it's not worth it. I've been up there so many times with these similar conditions, and we couldn't do anything because the winds were so bad. Even like going back to the earlier rescue attempt with the Chinook story. I mean, at the end of the day, I knew, like, okay, I can control the aircraft. We can do some gun runs by, and you can look, but we're not going to land. We're not going to hover. We're not even going to try it. It's just too crazy. And then as you get the whole from start to finish, you just make those kind of those checks and balances, everything from when you first get the mission to, okay, I like everything so far, and you keep reevaluating through the whole entire it isn't just like we're going and then you go. It's through the whole process. You're constantly going, all right, are we going to continue? And then you go a little further, are we going to continue? And you're reevaluating
constantly. And there's some people that don't understand that. Is like, you've made a decision based on what you have that at that moment in time. Well, that may change in 30 seconds. So now you have to make a new decision or a new plan, all because of a downdraft or a different wind change or whatever. Like, all of a sudden it's different that quick. So, I mean, the other things is we've responded to a lot of calls, and the weather's fine, especially when it comes to winds. And it isn't until you get to where you're at that you go, oh, wow, this is completely different than the last 30-minute flight that we took just to get here. Right. And that's when you're like, oh, let's rethink this, because it's crazy. Yeah. Hey, I'm all about it. This is all about real rescues, man. Come on. I'll take another story. Yeah. Well, our program in 2016, after evaluating night vision goggles for 14 years, we finally started. We have a new chief pilot who's very good, and we had a program on the books, but the previous chief pilots, nobody wanted to move forward. So in 2016, 14 years of evaluating night vision goggles. Yeah, exactly. And you now have them? No. We flew with them for 14 years. We were never allowed to fly in the mountains at night with goggles. So yeah. So we in 2016 we finally did that. So now I'm hoping before I retire, we'll take to the last phase, which we have policy, everything's in place. We'll hopefully start night hoisting next year. Call me. I'll come out. I'll help you out. I got you for that one. Yeah. I love hoisting on goggles. I've done that in the military. I just haven't done it on the highway patrol. Yeah. It is a game changer. Highly recommended. NVGs, I know they're expensive. Good job for the chief pilot now. Smart move. Yeah. Tyler Johns is a rock star. Oh, well done, Mr. Tyler Johns. Good job, man. Woo. All right, so I do have to ask, because you did say you were in Afghanistan. Do you have any cool stories from over there? Well, there is a funny story. I like funny. So we were in an area called Farah, and in this area they had probably little I call them foothills, but they're probably 2,000-3,000 foot little dinker mountains, if you want to call them that. And we're just keeping our currency going. And I had this young kid in the back, and we're blacked out. It's night, and we're just doing pattern work. And we're in the downwind, and my crew chief goes, "Hey, sir, I think somebody's taking pictures of the helicopter." Now, I'm an amateur photographer, and I'm like, there's no camera system on the planet that can take a picture of a helicopter from 3,000 feet away at night. So he goes, I'm seeing a bunch of flashes, sir. And so God bless him. God bless his heart.
It struck me as humorous because it's like not all guns have tracers. So I just said, I go, Calvin, I go, that would be gunfire. So let's change where we're training. And so we told the appropriate people and we flew to a different training area. But so from then on, when we did see gunfire, I'd always tease them and go, well, are you sure? Or is it just people taking pictures of us?
Oh gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Everybody starts somewhere. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
I've made my mistakes too. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll tell you one that can relate to that is when I first started flying. We had to do. I don't know if you guys had to do the same thing in the Army, but you give a 15-minute position, ops normal, all that jazz.
Yep.
And I remember calling them and it was like, yeah, this is our position. Ops are good. And they were like, good. No, it's never good. It's normal or abnormal. It's you either are normal or you have a problem. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Oh, it's funny. Dang. Well, like I said, I mean, I'll keep going. I love hearing stories. So whatever you've got.
Let's see. What else do I have?
I'll tell you what.
I'll
ahead.
tell you this. So you could be the most amazing rescue crew pilot. Doesn't matter. The biggest probably accolade story, national news I ever got was for saving a horse. So when it comes to animals, everybody loves animals. So we were en route to a medical transport, and we're flying across the valley, and we noticed a big column of smoke. So it was kind of in a right flight path. So we detoured over and took a look, and it just so happened it was a barn on fire. So we orbited. There's no fire departments on scene, so clearly it's an unreported fire. So we report the fire, and it's a big barn. It's really engulfed in flames. But on the backside of the barn is a small corral with a horse that's going nuts. So I tell my partner, hey, let's just land. Let's let the horse out of the corral into the open, field, at least save the horse. And then, so we orbited, land, fire's coming. My partner gets out and he does what he has to do. Well, I'm sitting there, I look over and I see a chicken coop, and it's full of chickens attached to this barn. So, and for those people that have never done it, especially the mindset when I came from the military to the civilian side, leaving a running helicopter with nobody sitting in it is a very foreign thing. But we do it when we reconfigure our helicopter. That's a normal thing. We lock the controls down, you get out, it's at idle, you reconfigure it, because we're a crew of two. I've got to reconfigure the helicopter because we don't fly regularly configured for a medical transport. So it's just a normal thing. I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. It's a natural, normal, safe thing to do, especially if it's urgent. A lot of times we try to shut down when we can, but there's sometimes where I got to burn fuel off. The patient is so uber critical that there's no time to shut down. It's going to be a quick thing. So I literally just locked the controls, walked over and opened up the chicken coop and tried to throw these chickens out, but chickens don't like to leave their coop. So they kept running back in until I got about half of them out of the chicken coop. Then they finally, the rest of them ran out. Well, as it turns out, that horse was the farmer's prize breeding stallion, and it was in the papers. It was a huge story, and I'm just like, it was just a horse and chickens. But to people, man, it's their livelihood, I guess. But I've rescued a lot of people that never made the news, and we rescued a horse, and it was literally international news, and I was just like, what? So that's always a funny story.
Oh, I like that. That's great.
Yeah. Because I think the one article I remember off the top of my head is you remember the old CHP television show? There was Ponch and John.
Yeah.
And the story started out with on shifts with Ponch and John and then there's an older Highway Patrol TV show, and I don't remember the actor's name. And they goes, those guys couldn't do it. Ponch and John couldn't do it, but they named me and my partner Kevin and Jeff did it, and they went into the rescue of the horse. And I was just like, wow. Yeah. So we've rescued prize breeding stallions.
That's hilarious. Oh, I love that. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, like, we talk about all these different cases that we've been on and we've done. Is there anything that you would kind of go back and almost Monday morning quarterback it, as you will, like lessons learned, or I would do this next time? Is there anything like that?
Absolutely.
So what do you got that you could kind of?
No, because what we normally do every 100% of the time, and I encourage all crews to do it, good or bad, we always discuss good things, like what went right, anything we can fix, and it's at that moment. I mean, it's literally as we're done, we're cleaning up the helicopter, we're going back to base, whatever, we discuss what just happened and what could we have done better. And when we find things we can do better as a unit, we'll discuss it as a unit. Obviously, as a crew, we'll discuss it between the crew member and I. No, they're over the years. I mean, we have went from no taglines to taglines, and now we're going back to tagless as a tool. It's not always. It is a tool.
Do both.
Surprisingly, I'm impressed with this new technique. You like stories? So here is this one's probably, it's been it's probably been at least 15, 17 years. It was one of our last tagless Stokes basket rescues. I came into a hover hole. It was a lady that was thrown from a horse. We're not too far from where our base is. It's just literally maybe 5-minute flight down into this canyon. So it's in the trees, tall trees, steep canyon. So we're in this hover hole, and it talk about everything going wrong. So the rotor wash is affecting the load. They misload the patient. They put a bunch of gear, so the load was off balance. No tagline, Stokes, and it's one of those basket type Stokes. So it really caught the rotor wash. And my partner and I had worked a lot together, so we were very, very crew integrated. And it was the first time in my career with her that her voice was like, that had an edge to it where she's about to watch somebody die. And so as the load came up within seconds, it was, you take any of these videos that you've seen in the last couple of years, that the spins are, like full RPM.
Yep.
And I'll explain how fast it was going in a few minutes, but it was every bit, if not faster. So as it's coming up, I hear her voice. I look over my shoulder because our hoist's on the left side, and I see the cable kind of moving and wiggling around. And she's like, it is out of control. And as I'm looking, the IV of the patient gets literally shot out of the basket like a cannon. And so I'm just like, in training, you don't train for a high speed spin. Then we have kind of worked on it a little bit now, but back then there was no, what do you do when you have a spin? You talk about it, but there's no training for it. So just based on all of my experience with flying, and there was no way to fly away where I was at. I was gonna have to come up out of the trees, and then so being the voice of calm in the aircraft, I told my partner, I go, hey, I'm going to come up and we're going to start flying forward, and it's going to slow down. Now, this was in theory, and it's stuff I've read and stuff, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Based on 15 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So as we're coming up and we start flying, now, meanwhile, she's like, the basket's is gonna fold or it's gonna come off. And it was one of those things in the back of my head in all of my career I would never thought I would ever do. But there was a moment there where I'm like, I'm not taking the entire aircraft out for the victim, unfortunately. And we do have it, we can pickle the load.
Yep.
So I ran through the process of what it's going to take for me to do that. And fortunately never got there. But
Good.
If it started getting catastrophic, it was like, hey, it's all of us or unfortunately the victim.
Right.
So as we came up out of the trees, accelerated, she slowed down, and we landed at our LZ, reconfigured, put her on board, and she did suffer. She blacked out. I mean, it like, if we're being recorded, no one will see it, but like, you see my fingers, it was probably like that fast. It was RPM, it was a blur. So as I was coming up out of the trees, I looked one more time over my left shoulder, and I could see the shadow, and I knew she said the load was spinning, but when I saw that shadow, I was like, holy crap, that's fast. So just, we flew away, and it ended up, it worked out well, but it's one of those things now, years since, there's all kinds of talking points and training and discussions. And this is back in the infancy, I think, of rescue hoist training and stuff like that. It's probably closer to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
but it's interesting that still happens. I mean, what was it? Just a couple of years ago, Arizona had it happen to them. There's no reason for this anymore. Well, I'm sorry. I spoke a little out of turn. There is limited, like, we have so many different avenues that you can do to prevent that or to fix it later. Like, I get it. Everybody gets into a spin at one point or another. Even, I had it not too long ago. Like, somebody got into a spin, but you can mitigate it. Put them back to the ground.
Yep.
Go into forward flight. Flight, it literally just will the wind dissipates, the rotor wash goes behind you. You have, it's like a kite now, and it just stabilizes. It's amazing. Forward flight.
So when you're back in the early days of rescue hoisting, there was just discussions, but now there's a lot of lessons learned out there, and I absolutely agree. Anybody can get a spin. It can happen. And I agree with you. You either put the load right back on the ground, but like afterwards, like, we found that they had put all kinds of gear by her feet. The rotor wash affected the load. I mean, there were so many things that were bad on that whole rescue that it was like, okay, and then after that we went pure tag line till just within the last year. Like I said, we've added back tagless, and it works fine. It's like, it's tools for your toolbox. Is one of my favorite sayings.
And I'm on board. Like, I like using a tagline to make sure that I have secured the load, and that helps the guy in the air. One of the terms that I use, and actually this comes from my dad, being on steeples all his life and being in the air, but he's like, the guy on the ground his job is to help the guy in the air. The guy in the air his job is to help the guy on the ground. As long as you guys are working together to help each other out, the load is going to be perfect. It's going to come up no problem. So by adding a tagline to the bottom, I'm now helping the guy in the air by keeping that load plumb. Now, if you have a good headwind, let's call it 20 knots, that load is not going to get into a major spin. You've got a good headwind blowing the rotor wash behind you. Is it necessary? Maybe, maybe not.
What I'm an advocate for, and we've been trying it more and more, is I did some testing this last summer and talking to ground crews, because we do 2 times a year big training events, just kind of our recertification for our external load stuff. And I've been thinking about this for a while. So we tested it, and so far the ground personnel said it wasn't as bad. I'm a big fan, when you can do it, just come in for a low hoist. So I'm talking 35 to 50 feet, or 50 feet, definitely for less. In talking with the ground personnel, they said whether you're 30 or 40 feet or 140 feet, it's still the rotor wash is pounding them down below. But we come in so much quicker, and the hoist is so much faster that we're only there for a few seconds. And so inserting our rescue technicians, picking up loads, it's literally 3 seconds or less. I mean, the line's already coming down, they hook it up, boom, it's coming up, and we're gone. So that's the biggest change I want to say in my career is doing lower picks. But if you come in like really slow, you're going to beat up your ground personnel for a longer period of time. But we do dynamic hoisting, so it's not just come down left. So we come in, kind of quicker. boom, we're over the target. Cable's already been deployed. They hook it up and we're gone. So it minimizes all of it.
Oh, I love dynamic hoisting. I really do. And if you have the terrain to be able to do that in, you start getting into the taller trees and stuff. It's a little more complicated, but you can still get into that spot, dynamic hoist at the top of the tree, and boom, static hoist, pull them in. As soon as you're above the tree, dynamic hoist the way out. You're done.
Yep.
Love it.
So it's a tool for the toolbox, like I was saying, but yeah, we'll do 130-foot picks if it's whatever the terrain absolutely dictates.
Options. I like options.
Yeah.
But you know what? You actually said it in the very beginning. There's no such thing as a cookie cutter rescue.
No.
That does not happen. Every rescue that I've ever been on has been different. Every one of them. There's not one that I can remember that was the same or, oh, that was just like that one. No, they're all different. Now, you can go back to your basic training and everything's standard calls. This is where all your terminology should be right. Your hand signals should be right. Packaging the patient should be right. You know the basics, but as far as the rescue itself, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm good.
I was going to say one of the philosophies I developed years ago as well, and because let me back up a little bit as well. So I have a huge love of safety. So in the military, I was the safety officer, and then I've been the unit safety officer and one of the training pilots here as well for quite a while. And so anytime we have incidences or anytime you see stuff or anytime there's you hear of a mission, you reevaluate it. And the one thing that I've seen on both industries, military, civilian, it doesn't matter, is when people attach too much emotion to the mission, meaning, and especially in the EMS world, I am a huge advocate. And sometimes when I say it in such a way, people go, oh, that's pretty cold. But their emergency is not our emergency. And
I use that all the time.
Yeah. I go, if my mother, and I always preface it, I'm going to use everything to my ability and what the regulations and policy to the fullest extent to get there, to do that rescue. But at the end of the day, if there's a parameter that we aren't authorized or the weather or whatever, if my mother's the one that's circling the drain in that LZ, at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, it's going to be tragic, but I'm not going to push it to that, to push a bad situation worse.
Right.
But I've seen like I said, I've been in aviation since '87. I've seen that would be the consistency is people like, why did you do that? And it's because they were too emotionally vested in that mission to say no, or to step back and go, yeah, the weather's decaying. It's getting dark. We didn't have goggles. I mean, just whatever you want to apply to the scenario. And that's why for probably the last decade, I've been hey, their emergency isn't our emergency. So not to sound cold, but you have to, at some point, I always use the medic triage. You get to a big scene and you have a lot of people in varying levels of injury. You have to decide who's getting the treatment, who's going to perish. I go, that's just like a call. You have to be able to triage that call to go, okay, we can get there. Oh, we can't get there anymore. And now we have to turn around and say no, or you get right before you can do the rescue. You're like, yeah, the winds are too strong and I want to rescue that person. But I'm just like, it's their bad day, not my bad day.
Right. And their bad day could turn our good day into a very bad day if people push too far. And a great example of that is the Mount Hood rescue with the Black Hawk. They go in, they get a downdraft. They didn't have the downdraft when they got in there. Downdraft took that helo right out of the air, right out of the sky, and next thing you know, the aircraft was rolling down the mountain. So all bad. So super smart.
And the I was gonna say something else.
Sorry.
No worries. It'll come back to me in like 5 minutes.
Standard ops.
Yeah, exactly.
I love you were talking about an exit plan earlier as well. One of the things that I do personally, or like we do as a crew, is we'll go through a checklist, like an on-scene checklist. Like you roll up on scene, you're going to check the winds. What is it doing? Is it coming over the pass? Is it going to affect us when we get in on scene? And then what is your exit plan? What are you going to do in case there's some sort of an emergency? Do you have an emergency flyaway? Do you have an emergency landing area? And I know guys
Right.
that have been able to use that and live to tell the tale. Like,
Yeah.
so
The
super
big
smart.
thing that I as being an instructor pilot for years, the one thing that I try to instill with, as I say, the younger generation, is treat it in a phase. So don't worry about the LZ or the rescue until you get there. Oh, I told you it was going to come back.
Hey.
So, yeah. So the point I was trying to make just a few minutes ago was the one thing that people don't understand when you push a bad situation and damage an aircraft or make a bad situation worse, especially, okay, let's say you pushed it and you pranged the helicopter, you didn't destroy it, but maybe it's going to be down for 2 weeks. Maybe that's your only rescue helicopter. I always look at it as, okay, you pushed it too far, you damaged the aircraft, and it's going to be out for 2 weeks. But what about tomorrow? What about the day after that? What about the day after that? How many other people are you possibly not going to be able to help because you pushed a situation that you shouldn't have pushed? And so that goes back to that reevaluate, constantly evaluate, and then treat the entire mission in phases. So like treat it as the departure phase, get all your information, and then the en route phase, and then the actual rescue phase, and then the get home phase,
Yes.
And don't think about the rescue phase if you're still in the planning phase, because you're not there at the scene yet. So and then when you're at the scene, the things that I always talk about, guys, is like, hey, what are things that can kill you or injure you right here, right now? And it's not people, then an LZ. So it's like aircraft, birds, wires, weather. So worry about those things until you have to worry about the things down on the ground. But don't start when you go, hey, what are you going to think about? Oh, I'm thinking about the wires and the LZ and blah, blah. Like, we're still like 20 miles away.
Yeah.
So think about the things that are going to hurt you right here, right now, and then treat each phase like that. So there's all kinds of acronyms that people came up with that for LZ, PZ, recons, and everything. And mine's pretty sweet and to the point. It's just high, low, look out below. And everything
I love
is
it.
just,
I absolutely love that. That's great.
Yeah. High, obviously, is your high recon. And I always say the only thing in that zone is other air. Now we have to add drones because I've had a few drone close calls.
Right.
But you got aircraft, birds, and drones at that altitude. And then when you get the low, is like your low recon, and then the lookout below is the actual. Now we're looking at the LZ.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of recon. There's a million. Everybody has their own recon. We have one at work called ASBAT and stuff like that, but I just like high, low, look out below. So
that's great. I'm going to use that for me. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to say it was mine. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, go for it.
Come on, Kevin.
Okay,
so you got to get royalties from me. That's cool. I'm good with that too.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, high, low, look out below. Man, that's great. It's interesting you talk about that, because I've been in the aircraft and I've been a victim of my own like, oh my God, excited, the adrenaline starts pumping, and you start making those decisions like, okay, when we get on scene, we're going to do this, 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 and this. I haven't even seen this scene yet, and I'm already making my hoist game plan. Step back, take a moment, slow it down, and I have to put myself, and again, I'm not speaking for anybody else out there. Me personally, I need to put myself in check as a hoist operator and as a rescue guy to say, let's get on scene, let's see what's there, then make the decision as far as how we're going to execute. I think that's really important for everybody out there.
I absolutely agree with that. One kind of analogy to that I want to say the EMS world started doing is because when they when they do the helicopter shopping, the weather is absolutely horrible. This provider turned it down. This provider turned it down. This provider turned it down. And when they go, hey, we have a 2-year-old And that's why, like I said, you got to remove yourself from the equation. They go, we got a 2-year-old. And when they attach that, they're like, oh, there's more pressure, to now that they're more like, hey, we have a patient. Can you make it? And they just go, no, I can't make it. They don't want to give you those little details to make that bad decision. Like, oh, it's a 2-year. Like, I would not normally fly this way, but since it's a 2-year-old, I'll push a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always tell, like, when I'm doing evaluations, I go, hey, what are your limitations? And people always, talk about aircraft. And the one that I like to stress more is, what are your personal limitations?
Great one.
Because people don't address their own limitations. And when we do training with other allied agencies, the one, I think, death statement that people make is when you have a ground coordinator that goes, oh, these guys landed here yesterday, or that pilot landed on that rock. And I always stress that when we go do training, I go, I may be comfortable landing here today, but the next crew that comes, they may not. So don't always just go, hey, they're going to be able to land here. I go, it's predicated on the crew. That guy might be brand new into the program, only has a couple hundred to 1,000. I mean, he's new, just everything. So, and hit that LZ might be just a little too small for him. So if they decide, it's always the crew's decision. If they decide not to do whatever that is, that's their call. And, you just got to respect it. So, but going back to what we're talking about, where are we going? So the only thing I really care about is altitude, like what's the elevation, what's the weather, what's the winds. And then that's about all I really care about. Because I would say, we always preach this when we do our training, 60% of the time of all the calls I get for a hoist that say, hey, it's a hoist call, 60% of the time we can land. So we can land close by, because we have a mindset that we are only going to use that hoist as an absolute last resort, because it puts a helicopter in such a precarious, we can't land. So if anything goes wrong, we're going to crash. Right. So we're going to hoist at the last. So I would say 60% of the hoist calls that I get, 60% of the time, we land close by, nearby, or it's not, we don't do that many, do a lot of hoists, but based on the call volume, we shed it by easily 60%.
Wow.
So, but so then as we're going to the call, like you're saying, regardless, if we have really good intel, like, that's probably going to be a hoist, every single time we are going right to the LZ to reconfigure to go do the hoist. We're absolutely going to go to the scene. Like you said, we're going to size it up, look at it, look for hazards, kind of figure out a game plan, because going back to the 60%, I go, oh no, I can land on that little ledge right over there, and they can just hike right to us. And we don't even have to do a hoist. So we're absolutely going to evaluate every single call once we get there. And I'm not going to make any decisions before I get there of what we're going to do until I see it.
Yeah. And that's the only way to do it. You have to do it like that. Because you start making a game plan, and I've seen guys do this too. And like I said, I don't want to throw other people on the bus. So that's why I like to throw myself under the bus more than anything else. Like, I try to keep myself in check before we get on scene. And if I get guys in the aircraft with me, I'm like, you know what? Let's just wait until we get on scene. We'll take a look. I love the idea of like, let's do a single insertion. Let's do this. But you're right. Maybe we can land right over there. And then it just changes everything when you get there anyway. So wait until you get on scene. For everybody that's on the ground, all right, anybody that's listening that doesn't fly, they're on the ground unit, we are going in circles. We're sitting in a hover. We are discussing as an air crew what the best options are. That's why it's taking us so long. All right. Just so everybody knows.
Exactly.
So nice. Well, I'll tell you what, Kev, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. If there's anything else that you have that you would like to share to everybody else, words of wisdom, it's open to you, my friends.
The big things are, I always preach, don't change. And then, like I said, these are lessons that I've learned in a long aviation career. So I always say, hey, you don't have to, not saying crash helicopters or, any of that kind of stuff, but learn from other people's lessons. Cause I've definitely had close calls with running out of power. I've definitely had close calls with debris. There's a lot of lessons. So the one thing is don't change your routine for the call. Just do your normal routine. Everything will work out. Don't make their emergency your emergency. Constantly reevaluate. And that goes for the ground personnel too. Oh, now here's one thing. For anybody that's listening to this podcast, I can't stress this enough. After having done and been in the rescue business for decades, preach to you and any of your family members and anybody else, carry a 3x3 hunter orange flag panel, because if you are out in the wilderness, everybody loves to wear browns and greens and grays and whites in the snow. And I tell them, in all of my years rescuing, I can always see all the rescuers because they wear bright orange rescue shirts. And every single person that I've come in contact, I go, if you're an outdoor person, have a 3x3 bright orange panel. And that way it will always work regardless if there's sun. Now, granted, you're going to need light, but you don't need a mirror. It stands out more than any other color. And I say it stands out even more than the bright search and rescue yellow color, the bumblebee yellow color.
Yeah.
I think bright orange is by far. And there was a time when I had more energy, I was trying to get it past where if you're an outdoors person, you at least had to have that as part of a regulation in California, because there's so many people that we've rescued that were dressed almost in camouflage, it seemed like, and they're just sitting there by their tree thinking, oh, the helicopter's above me, it can see me. And I'm like, no, you look like a plant, I can't see you. So I wish people would just throw that, either even a hunter vest, just put something bright orange in your pack and carry with you at all times, because it will be the one thing that we will always see from the air.
Man, great advice.
But
I like that.
From the the helicopter side, if you have an organization that doesn't have IFR instrument rating, even if our program, we have an amazing helicopter, it has an autopilot, has an absolutely beautiful IFR capability. It's just not certified. So the instrument rating just enhances your ability as a pilot to do the job more effectively, because as you know, in the rescue world, people don't always get injured or need rescuing in beautiful weather. So that's the one variable in the Sierras that changes literally by the second. So we are constantly evaluating weather. And as we're going into the winter months here, it's back to that whole, we launch and we're constantly reevaluating. And I've been trapped in valleys. And at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we've had to land in a field and just wait out the weather or get rescued ourselves. There was a crew probably 10 years ago up doing a rescue, and they got weathered out, and there was a Forest Service helipad that they landed at, and they just locked up the aircraft, and ground personnel came, because it was a pretty bad storm, came in and pulled the crew out with snowmobiles, and a couple of days later another crew went up there and recovered the helicopter. But it's land and live versus push weather and go inadvertent IMC. Yeah. But if you're flying under marginal weather, now speaking from experience in California, because it burns down every year, we're flying in the bad smoke every year. It's like smoke. It's so and haze is just as bad as clouds. So if you don't have an instrument rating, I say it's worth its weight in gold.
Man, I like that.
Yeah.
Kevin, this has been awesome. I appreciate all the stories, the advice, the knowledge passing. It's been amazing. And you know what? You said it, but I'm going to kind of adjust it a little bit and say, before you make that call, do your job. Thank you, Coach Belichick.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on. No, I'm just kidding. No, Kevin, this has been awesome. Thank you guys. What you guys do out there is absolutely incredible. For those that have never seen it, just go YouTube CHP Rescues and you'll see some crazy cool videos. So
yeah,
Dude, it's awesome. Well, thanks, Kevin.
Cool.
I appreciate it, man.
I'd
like to keep in touch with you and yeah, let me know whenever you get another rescue. Come on. I'll
absolutely.
Back. Sweet.
Are you coming ever back stateside?
Yeah, actually I come back all the time. What are you talking about? Yeah, all the time.
If you make it up this way, come do a ride along.
Oh, don't tease me with a good time now. Come on. You know what? My daughter lives down in Sacramento. I'll come down and I'll visit her and conveniently drive out to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. All right, Kevin. Well, hey, you fly safe tonight. I know you're on call, so if the alarm goes off, they're calling you. I love it.
Right on.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ Podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResQ.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealResQ. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.